Hey there, my name is, and I'm coming to you on behalf of the Planet Peace Project, a fledgling organization that I'm trying to start to help save the world. This is my cat pin that I've worn every day since I've been separated from my pets in 2019, and I'm actually um, trying to get the federal government to help me get them back. Now, the presidential debate last night between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch any more of them because, like a lot of you, it was, if you're empathic, it was kind of upsetting and it almost made me sick to my stomach. The people that are watching that need to hear concise comments, and we need to see intelligent discourse. And I think to some extent that did occur. But I know that you two guys hate each other. I recognize that, and I recognize that within the first minute, being an empath like I am. But try to let emotion be secondary to intellect, and do try to speak in ways that are gracious and, basically presidential. Joe Biden. And I admit I've been a Democrat since I was 6 years old, and that was more than half a century ago. So yeah, I'm biased because I've been accused of being a bleeding heart liberal all my life. When in point of fact, I'm more of a moderate, and in certain areas, rather conservative. I am a mixed bag, like a lot of people in America. I have, I see benefits and reason on both sides of the scale between Republican and Democrat. And I'm pretty much in the middle, but I do lean left. I was really proud of Joe Biden. When attacked, he stayed secure. When the United States president stooped to such a level of schoolyard bullying that he called Joe Biden number two. And I was so embarrassed for our country. Joe Biden just blew it off, and it's like, oh, good Lord, that's beneath the notice to even comment. But there were points at which I think, particularly during the middle of the debate, that Donald Trump kept interrupting repeatedly for several minutes Biden's attempts to respond. And a debate is supposed to be exactly that. It's not a chance to bully people you resent and fear. Just remember, Pontius Pilate killed Jesus Christ out of jealousy and fear. So we don't want to be, having jealousy and fear in our presidential debate. What we want is a couple of philosophers up there. I'd like to see Immanuel Kant and William James up there, or Soren Kierkegaard and Blaise Pascal, and some real intelligent discourse, and none of this interrupting and none of this bullying. So just chill and grow up, and everybody be calm and talk nice. Keep calm and talk nice. How's that? We need a T-shirt. There were some things that really bothered me last night, and I am not lacking in compassion for the challenges that Donald Trump faces. I think that he's tried to some limited extent to grow into the role a bit. It does bother me he spent so much of his time on the golf course, particularly during crises. But what really bothers me is the diversion tactics that were used. He didn't, he basically didn't answer the questions, the very direct questions about his income taxes. And I think if I remember correctly, he just kind of outright misrepresented the truth when he said he paid millions of dollars in income taxes within X amount of time. I'm not quite sure that's the case. Uh, and then when he was asked to publicly condemn white supremacism, He balked, he shifted, he hemmed and hawed, and he couldn't do it. He kept saying Antifa, Antifa is a terrorist organization, blah, blah, blah. Well, so are some white supremacist organizations. But he refused in public, out loud and in person, to condemn white supremacist organizations. And I wonder why that is. I could just practically hear him think, oh, well, if I do that, there goes my base, there goes my voting base. Let me tell you about real superiority. There is such a thing as real superiority, but Hitler wasn't about to achieve it by breeding a certain um, genetic strain in his Lebensborn eugenics program. Real superiority is going to always be found through spiritual seeking. Real superiority can be obtained by anybody of any race, color, creed, genetic background if they do the work. And the work is spiritual seeking. Spiritual seeking could be reading from a lot of different religions or one particularly good one. Spiritual seeking could be obtained from reading secular philosophy and studying the works of philosophers who did not necessarily have a religious intention or base in their thinking. And you've got to study ethics in order to be a truly superior human being. It doesn't matter what your genetic background, it matters what your philosophical background is. And you absolutely have to be an ethical person. So remember that, Mr. Trump. When you refuse to condemn racism, I am a white blonde person, and even recently I have suffered racism myself. People resent blonde white people, probably because of the way they've been treated by other blonde white people. But I am not guilty, and I resent racism because I myself, ironically, have been a victim of that. And I think beyond that, we just have a whole situation where two people who have good reasons to uh, resent one another tried rather valiantly in Joe Biden's case to have a calm philosophical discourse in public, and that's what the United States needs. That's what the people need. In my way of thinking, if somebody hasn't decided who they're going to vote for yet, then they're really not paying attention. But I do think that um, we as a people need to call for a calmer debate in the future. I really don't see Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, verbally duking it out that way. And next week, I believe it's the 7th, there's going to be a vice presidential debate. And I have a feeling it's going to be a bit more presidential than this one I saw last night. I'm telling you, emotionally, it made me sick. So respect the moderator, respect the time limits, don't interrupt each other in mid-sentence, and have significant, have the kind of class that we need to see in a president. I didn't see that for Donald Trump last night, and I was very disappointed. And I think he, for a lot of reasons, needs to be unprecedented. Joe Biden was, in fact, significantly more presidential, more philosophical, and more restrained. But I'm sure basically on some male testosterone based level, they both just wanted to slug each other. And that was more obvious than anything else. I guess the last point I would like to make is although climate change is certainly an animal rights and even a human rights issue, and it's an environmental or what I call planetary rights issue, because the planet itself has rights that are being violated by humanity every day. The planet itself has rights that are being violated every day by this one specific species called humans. I tell you, Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie was right when Gene Roddenberry had the feature thing that was coming back, and it was partly organic. A feature called Humanity and Infestation, Not a Population. And I was the one who laughed longest and loudest in the otherwise quiet movie theater when the character said that. So yeah, they did deal with one segment on climate change. But number one, anybody who didn't understand the greenhouse effect by the time they were in elementary school physical science shouldn't be president. If you don't understand the greenhouse effect and realize what's taking place on this world, you shouldn't be in any position of authority. It's not a matter of believing in the greenhouse effect. You don't believe in the ocean. You don't believe in the air. You don't believe in that building across the street. They're just there. You see them. They're obvious. They exist. Climate change is not a matter of belief. It's a matter of understanding and acknowledgement. And what I'd really like to see is a segment on animal rights, factory farms, fur farms, what our position is with these meat markets, the wet meat markets in China, what our position is with these horrible dog and cat festivals, festivals and other parts of the world. And animal rights include the Bureau of Land Management, mismanagement and slaughtering of wild horses in America. Our tax dollars are paying for helicopters to herd beautiful wild creatures that deserve their place on the land. It's not our land, it's the land. Humanity. The world isn't ours. It's not ours to destroy, pockmark, and to pollute. It belongs to all species of life hereupon. Get used to it, grow up, show up with the shame and the intent to do better and not contribute to mass extinction. But we've got horses being herded by helicopters into barbed wire fences, foals, sometimes break their legs trying to get away from these things. And I talked to Barack Obama about 7 years ago when he was president, and I was calling him on that. And he said, he wanted to help horses, but he had less control over the BLM than I thought he did. And I said, well, then get control. Somebody's got to stop this. And a president is in a unique position to stop that kind of animal abuse that occurs on the taxpayer's dime. Then let's talk about the Veterans Administration and the Centers for Disease Control. Horrifying cruelty, experiments on animals that are sentient and in pain and fear. We, as a people, fund cruelty in those laboratories that if people as individuals committed that themselves outside of an experimental lab, they'd get arrested and convicted of animal cruelty. Well, just because you're a scientist in a white coat, I'm going to start crying here. Just because you're a scientist in a white coat doesn't mean you get to commit the most horrific cruelty. What are you people, Nazis? Don't you understand? You shouldn't be allowed to be a scientist if you think you can torture life in order to understand health. The human species will never, ever get well and understand life and health by torturing animals in cruel experiments. So I want to see a section on animal rights in these debates, and I want to hear what the candidates have to say about their position on that. When Trump first got into the presidency, within the first week, he tried to, and I think succeeded in preventing knowledge of where experimental animals are being held and tortured. And that was very bad because there are organizations like Garo Alexanian's Beagle Rescue, Beagle Freedom Project, where people will devote their time, money, and effort into getting these animals out of experimental labs and giving them good homes and letting them retire in peace and freedom. Those which survived the experiments anyway. And so suddenly, like literally within a week, we couldn't find where these animals were being held captive and when they were going to be released and so forth. And then I think it was 2 or 3 months after Donald Trump was president, I saw on Facebook a list of anti-animal actions that he himself had taken. And and I thought it was going to be about 8 or 10 long. And I clicked on it, and it opened up, and it was something like 30 different points that Donald Trump had taken against animals. Hey, Donald Trump, will you help me find my cats and get them back? I am asking federal agencies to do that. And there's a reason why. I was born at a national security agency attached military intelligence base. And by the time I was 11 years old, the NSA and the Air Force MI and the Navy intelligence people I knew and the Army intelligence people I knew, all adults and many of them very well decorated soldiers, were calling me a force of nature and the perfect storm. So I'm asking federal agencies to help me find and retrieve my animals that have been stolen by two people who used to have positions in the military. And I'm asking these agencies, in spite of the fact that I know that they're currently being run by a person whose son is a trophy hunter. And, you know, what do you have to have in your brain to do that sort of thing? Nothing, except cruelty and selfishness and greed and pride. Where is the so-called Christianity in your family? Donald Trump, you held up a Bible in front of a church you don't go to after gassing peaceful protesters. And do you know that there's a very, very similar image of Adolf Hitler doing the exact same thing? I'm asking Donald Trump to be that he has ever been. And I actually think he's capable of it. This is not a person completely lacking in intelligence. This is not a person utterly lacking in morality. This is a person who could work on that morality thing and shore it up a bit. You think? This is a complex subject, and we have much work to do as a species and as a country. But the last point I will make, after crying on you about animal rights and asking these two gentlemen to not duke it out like they're kids on a playground, but to have a more elevated and philosophical discourse in the future debates. I'm very concerned that Donald Trump has repeatedly said that he may not accept the results of the election. You're going to do it. You're going to accept the results of the elections. We're not like one of those countries that has 40 different governments in 40 years. The American system has, for centuries, been beautifully unique in that we peacefully hand over the executive branch of the government every 4 to 8 years, and we're going to continue to do so. There will be a 46th president, and we're going to have that 46th president elected in November and inaugurated on January the 20th. Joe Biden is about to be president of the United States, and Kamala Harris is going to be the vice president. That's just the way it is. So get used to the idea, Donald Trump. Hey, you're going to have a whole heck of a lot more time on the golf course.